I was in a place where I was prepared to take my life. I wanted time to swallow me up. I couldn't concentrate on anything. I couldn't eat. I just was in a constant state and cycle of panic, fear, depression, anxiety. The only way to describe it is I was hopeless. My name's Shaun Flores, mental health advocate, public speaker, I would say thought leader, someone who's trying to leave the world in a better place than I found it. I live with OCD and potentially ADHD, so that's something else I want to get sorted out. And yeah, I'm just trying to disrupt a few ideas that I've had growing up, and for a lot of other young black men especially as well. I'm from the Caribbean, Trinidad and Tobago. I used to go back home every year, twice a year. So I've got quite a strong affinity, quite a strong cultural link. So most of my family are back home in Trinidad. So when we're back in Trinidad, there's regular meetups, regular eating, regular going out. In the UK, it's a little bit different. It's more so the family that we've made are from who my mum's met through work or through church. So yeah, I'm quite strongly Trinidadian, but as I've gotten older, I think I've also started to really understand just how pivotal culture can be in shaping who anybody is and how I want it also to shape me. I grew up quite conservative, quite strict. So Seventh-day Adventist, so it's another denomination of Christianity. For example, even to this day, I struggle to eat pork. I psychologically really still struggle to eat pork because growing up, we don't touch pork. I didn't really eat seafood when I was younger unless it had scales, you know, like salmon and other types of fish. I don't think I'm necessarily Christian. I believe in a higher power. I don't dispute religion's place or impact in the world. I think I'd rather come to it off my own accord and not what's being forced down my throat. My mum's got a strong sense of religion. She always would say to me that it helped her. It was her form of therapy when she first came to the UK, and it helped her to get through a lot of her dark times. I was describing myself as someone, I was just quite inward. I was someone who was quite a deep, profound thinker. I enjoy being around people. I was also a little bit shy at the same time. I had to fight to take myself out of my comfort zones and to bring myself out of my own shell. I used to build a lot of Lego when I was younger, and I really enjoyed that. I would play football with my friends, but it was only as I got older I started developing actual hobbies and interests and trying new things. I think I was a child who always wanted to do a lot, but my mum was quite an anxious mum. She was someone who, when my dad died, it rocked her world. My mum was never the same, and my mum never got any mental help for it. Only of recent now is she, trying to get counselling. Again, it's at 29 years old have I now realised just how much of that anxious blueprint has really put me into a certain bubble about things. But I don't think I could have fought back against my mum's rule. It was only until I got older and I got bigger was when I started to be like, I want to do things. I want to be a boy. I want to go out there and I want to try new things. I want a little sense of danger, a bit of experience. For a couple of years, I didn't realize I had health anxiety. So I was always worried that I had an STI or an STD and I couldn't stop obsessing about it. And I thought this was normal. So if when I went to the toilet and it hurt a little bit, I would run to a clinic, cancel all my plans. I would make sure I got tested. And it reached a point where they kept asking, why do I keep coming back? And I couldn't really give them an answer. I just said, I feel like I've got something. Came back negative, but then there was a time previously with one of my exes, she lied about chlamydia. So then obviously I had to get the treatment for that, and it stuck in my mind. So that's why I became obsessive. And at my worst, I paid £300 for a same-day sexual health test just to prove I didn't have anything. And that's when I realized there's something not quite right. But I just couldn't put it into words on what it exactly actually was. So that kind of left. Then the new fear I had HIV came in, and then I got blood tests. That also came back negative. But then what happened was I had a dream, and I had this dream of this white guy in boxers, and I just woke up with this 100% conviction I was suddenly gay overnight. It's illogical. I think to anybody who listens to that doesn't mean you're gay. And people ask, what's the issue with that? Good point. Culturally, I grew up with this idea that anything that was gay was wrong. It was against culture, it was against my Christian values that I would have had growing up. So I threw up in the toilet that morning, and I just kept looking for evidence. I was constantly evidence searching to prove that I was gay. Nothing came. There was no evidence to come. It affected my intimate relationships. It affected everything I did all across the pond, because everything in my head was all about, how can I prove that I'm gay? That kind of was still there for a while, but it kind of came in, came out. Some days it bothered me, other days it didn't really bother me. But then what happened one time when I was high on cannabis, I was seeing someone, and I just had this sudden fear that I was going to hurt them, like sexual assault. And I remember I screamed at them to leave, because I was like, no, there's something wrong with me. I must be hearing voices. This can't be normal. And I remember I kept asking for reassurance. I'm like, I didn't do anything to you, did I? She was like, no, you didn't do anything, Shaun, you're fine, like, you're okay. But I couldn't get this idea out of my head. I thought to have a thought meant that I was going to do something. And that's obviously not how the brain works. But there's a great Proverbs, as a man thinketh, so is he, which is something I grew up thinking for years, that whatever you have in your head means you're going to become, or that's what you're going to do. And I think that's been at the core of my anxiety, really and truly. But now I understand that's not the case. But when I tried to sleep that night, I had suicide images, blood crashing into my head, and I was like, there's something wrong. I was like, there's something wrong. So I put my coat on, gave my keys out to the COVID people outside, this was during the COVID period. And I just kept walking up and down thinking, I'm hearing voices. And then when I was sober, I was absolutely fine. Suddenly normal, the panic had stopped. And I didn't know what was going on. So the mental health team came to check for me. And I said, no, I'll be okay, I'll just go therapy. Friends stayed with me that night. Started therapy. During that time period, I started seeing a psychodynamic therapist. It made what was going on in my head 100 times worse, because it started new rumination, started new truth seeking and pondering and trying to get to the root of ideas. And then I just had a big breakdown, really and truly. I just woke up and I said, I can't do this anymore. So I called up the NHS, the IAPT service, which is the Improving Access to Psychological Therapy service. And I begged them. I was like, I need help. I said, I believe I've got OCD. And they suggested to me a book called Break Free from OCD. But when you're in a poor mental state, you can't read anything, you can't absorb anything, you can't digest anything. I was in a place where I was prepared to take my life. I wanted time to swallow me up. I couldn't concentrate on anything. I couldn't eat. I just was in a constant state and cycle of panic, fear, depression, anxiety. The only way to describe it is I was hopeless. So I went online, and I just don't know how this happened, but I found a lady. Her name was the Anxiety Whisperer. I begged her for a phone call, and when she picked up the call, I just started crying, I started pouring my eyes. I said, what's wrong with me? I said, why am I having thoughts that I could be all of these different things? She's like, Shaun, you have OCD. And I was still terrified. I said, am I going to ever get better? I'm sick, I'm wrong. She was like, Shaun, I have OCD and I lead a normal life. And for around 6 months, I would say, was the worst couple of months of my life. I really struggled. I had to go out and be triggered by things and learn to sit with the anxiety and learn to realize that my thoughts don't make up who I am. So it was also about unlearning those core beliefs that I once had, which were mainly black and white thinking, and learning to operate within the gray area. But she was the one that really helped me. She was the one that, when I had no money, I had nothing, she saved my life. What really encouraged me to become really vocal since being diagnosed with OCD has been, well, there was a moment. And what happened was, I woke up on one morning, I had this anxiety that I was schizophrenic, bipolar, BPD, just all the usual anxieties. And then I just quite literally said, fuck this, I'm not doing this anymore. I refuse to be depressed. I refuse to be anxious. I'm going to go and take my life back. So I mustered up the courage at the time, get out of bed, come downstairs, and I just opened up my laptop and I opened up Google Docs and I just wrote my story. I wrote it all out. I decided to find every journalist I possibly could, every newspaper, every magazine publication I could, and I was on a mission. Every email was, I've got a story to tell you. You need to hear this story. I did everything I could, and I bothered, legally harassed people as much as I could until they took up my story, and that's how it started. So when I wrote my story, so many black people reached out to me. Friends that I had on Instagram reached out to me. Friends in my everyday life reached out to me and said, I've also got OCD as well. And everyone else around me started to open up. And as time went on, I created a WhatsApp group who are black with OCD. And I realized one of the best ways to get myself out of, depression and anxiety was by being of service to other people and having something that was purpose driven and purpose led. And that was by sharing my story and giving other people hope when they believed they had no hope. And especially in our community, there's this idea that speaking about mental health makes us unwell, or people are going to judge us. And yeah, people will judge us, and having a community around you that won't judge you and understands your struggle, I think has been I can't even put into words or calculate or quantify just how important that's been for people on their road to recovery from OCD. Well, I think an advocate for me living with OCD means it's a message of hope that you can still lead a normal life with OCD. It's not the end of your world. It's a rebirth into another one, and how recovery is possible. As I said, I still have some tough days. That's normal. But I try to show people by being an advocate that you can still fight through your pain, and on the other side there is growth and there's some sort of reward that you're going to get from it. One thing that I think that I am sometimes at a conflict with being Shaun the advocate for OCD is sometimes I forget I'm somebody beyond OCD advocacy. And since deactivating my social media or deleting my social media apps on my phone and stepping out of the advocacy world, I've reminded myself I'm not just an OCD advocate. I'm Shaun that's the human. I'm Shaun that wants to go on and do other things. So I've had to also realize my identity cannot solely be about being an advocate or a mental health advocate. Yes, it's at the core and one of the cruxes of my being, but it's not the only thing. I'm multifaceted. I've got so many different dimensions to me that I have to explore. What I think needs to be done to improve diverse representation within the OCD community, we need more ethnic minorities in OCD trials, because when it comes to, for example, antidepressants actually affect people differently based on your ethnic group. This is something people don't talk about. Antidepressants have very different effects on the Caucasian population, to the Asian population, to the black African, to the black. People don't speak about this. It's something that's not widely circulated, and it's actually genuinely, as I said, because it's not widely circulated, it's not widely known. By having people of diverse sample sizes come forward speaking about what's going on and being a part of these trials, you get to find treatment options that again are culturally relevant, culturally sensitive and culturally appropriate, but also finding medication that can work across different ethnic groups. And for a lot of people that just sounds like, oh, white woke diversity, but that's not the case. This is scientific fact, it's scientific reality, and we can't just deny something based on how we feel politically about it. If we're all about protecting society and giving people a chance to live in society free from illness and ailment, then we've got to have those difficult and uncomfortable conversations. However, I do understand the hesitation for a lot of people, and that's in regards to, for a very long time, black people have been seen as medical experiments. There's many instances in society where this has happened, and I think for a lot of that there's a growing medical distrust happening within certain communities which prevent people from going into certain trials, which those trials are going to create better treatment options for those living with certain conditions. So it's cyclical. We need more and more people from diverse communities speaking up about OCD, but there's the real life consequences. Again, when I spoke about my mental health, my mum worried I'd never get a job. She was worried me putting myself out there. Most people would never want to hire me again, which is a realistic fear. I understand it, and it's my mum trying to look out for me. But I've always said, if someone won't take you on because of something you cannot control but something you can manage, that says a lot about the employer themselves, right? Times have changed and people are evolving, and the people we're hiring are also evolving. But I think quite importantly as well, we need people to understand that they are not their thoughts. Your thoughts don't mean anything about you. If you've ever had thoughts about things you think are absolutely disgusting, best believe I've had all those thoughts as well. You're not a monster, you're not a bad person, you're someone that potentially may have OCD. Speak to your GP, speak to a therapist, speak to people who love and care about you. And the people around you who love and support you, they're going to help you get better. It's not the end of your life. So at the moment, I'm just working part-time to just get my money back up. And I'm hoping what I want to be able to do after that is to become perhaps a counsellor / slash therapist. I'm trying to figure out how to do that and whether it's something, as much as I think it's what I want to do, I want to be 100% sure. So I think those are the professions that would best suit the skill sets I have. And it's not, you're not just a therapist or a counselor, you perhaps a friend, you're another, someone can confide in, you're a safe space. And I think that's something that I needed for years, but I want to blend that alongside the other creative ventures I have, such as public speaking, hopefully becoming an author. If I was looking at my younger self, what would I say to him? I suppose I would comfort my younger self and say it's okay. We've gone through a lot. But also I'd want to access parts of my brain when I was younger. So I'd also ask my younger self to be more self-reflective and to sit down and to acknowledge my emotions and to not just dismiss them or turn them away because they may have felt a bit too intense. And I would actually apologize to the young me and thank myself now in the present for trying to return to that inner child.